Truck crashes initially made Holcomb Hill, north of Aberdeen, an accident black spot, but it took this accident last October, in which 4 members of the Waikingate family from Armidale died, to finally put the New England highway bend under the microscope. 2 months after promising action, Transport Minister and Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson today announced his response.
Firstly, some work to make this as safe as we can, with a dividing concrete strip down the middle and clearing some trees and so forth. But we will also start right away design work for a proper long-term solution.
Solution Scone Mayor Barry Rose has wanted for years.
And to be promised a long-term solution costing $16.3 million is just absolutely mind-blowing news.
The safety upgrade and subsequent overhaul comes even though the RTA can't pinpoint an exact reason for the bend's accident record. The realignment could see the New England highway moved east of its current path. The suggestion has been around for years, and it's an idea which has attracted the attention of the Deputy Prime Minister.
And that is that we ought to just line the thing up properly, go straight through on a completely new alignment, fix it once and for all.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Sporting the longest losing streak in the NBL this season, it was going to take more than just a captain's knock to score a win. Kevin Brooks also on target early. And while the Crocs lacked a little bite, they kept in touch. Hard work off the boards in defence opened up opportunities at the other end for Josh Morgan, who found ways around Townsville. Alan McCowan's Hail Mary didn't beat the buzzer, but the points kept falling for the home side. They started to come a little easy for the Crocs as well, Robert Rose among those who started to turn things the visitors' way. Leading by 12 at half-time, the Pirates scored just 15 points in the third term as former Falcon Pat Reedy joined the Crocs scoring spree. Chris Brown's effort rounded out the Pirates' finish as everything seemed to go Townsville's way. Frustration grew, Geordie Cullen ending the night on the bench after being fouled out. That's where his coach was already, but it didn't stop Dave Simmons from scoring a technical foul. Clawing their way back within a point, Hunter couldn't pass Townsville once they'd hit the front. Hunter play the Tigers in their last match of the season tomorrow afternoon. As the sun grabbed a glimpse of the picturesque triathlon course, multiple winner Boyd Conrick needed just a quick once-over as well. Now included in the State Cup Series, strong fields across several divisions meant a range of staggered starts. However, the open field took little time to catch the first wave of starters. A familiar sight was at the pointy end of the field after the 500-metre swim, while Angie Sharp led out the women from Maitland teenage star Melanie Sexton. The 4-lap bicycle leg that stretched along the Newcastle foreshore became a race of 7 as a bunch worked at a good pace. Brother to elite women's star Nicole Hackett, Steve tried to break away on the 20k leg. Unlike the men though, Sharp rode her own race, well ahead of Sexton. The men had opened a healthy lead after the cycle as it became a 5-kilometre foot race to the finish. Burning off the bunch, Conrick and Hackett made it a 2-horse race as they closed in. The hometown boy with enough in the tank to make it 8 wins. He'll now defend his State Cup crown next weekend in Port Stephens.
Should suit me a little bit better with the training I've been doing, and then 4 weeks after that I've got Foster for the first time ever, and I'm very apprehensive about that race actually.
Sharp following some 7.5 minutes later to take out the women's division.
The 40-year-old hotel has only 72 rooms on a relatively large block of land, and a reported $18 million offer for the site was too good to refuse. But the facility won't be closing until the owner, the Intercontinental Hotel Group, as in any real estate transaction, sees the colour of the developer's money.
It's always been a bit of a moving target, but the company made the decision that instead of, it's a risk management issue, where we just decided to keep the company, decided to keep the hotel open right up until settlement date.
The Holiday Inn's closure will mean more business for others, particularly its sister in Newcastle, the Crown Plaza on the harbour. But General Manager Ian Baker says Crown Plaza hasn't just been waiting for that to happen, reporting a very successful first year in operation.
It's certainly not waiting for the Holiday Inn to close to blossom. We've been doing very well with the Holiday Inn trading, so it will just help kick along all the motels in Newcastle, I believe.
The already approved residential development on the premium Holiday Inn site is only one of many in the East End. Behind it, the 8-level No. 1 Scott Street is taking shape, with completion due in October. The refurbished North Wing and the new York Tower are almost complete, with only 2 dwellings in each yet to be sold. And the future looks endless, with the Royal Newcastle Hospital itself to be sold in 5 years, destined for more residential accommodation.
The Newcastle earthquake in 1989 had devastating effects on one of Newcastle's most well-known landmarks. Christ Church Cathedral suffered extensive damage, costing the Anglican diocese $15.3 million to repair. Now the remaining $488,000 owed for restoring the cathedral has been paid off.
But it's an extremely good feeling for everybody, not just for me. And it's a simply wonderful thing to know that we're not paying that 8% every month on $500,000.
The Anglican diocese has recently sold 44 Newcommon Street, which formerly housed the cathedral's director of music.
And the sale of that has enabled us to wipe the debt, and it'll enable us now to do our next building stage, which will be to build what we're calling a chapter house, a meeting place in the cathedral grounds.
And although the restoration project was completed in 1997, the Very Reverend Graham Lawrence says maintaining the old cathedral will be an expensive ongoing process. In fact, there's a number of repairs needed on the 114-year-old building, including the east wall, where the mortar has failed despite being repointed in 1996. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
They've really improved over the last couple of years. The first few years that they started playing against us, we used to whoop them, but these days it's a different ball game altogether.
It may sound like a long shot to some, but to the Hunter Pirates, setting up a home base on this 20-hectare site at Thornton is a very logical and financially viable venture. The Pirates are confident they'll attract big crowds, even though the proposed stadium is outside Newcastle.
There's a huge population explosion in areas like Fletcher, Thornton, and if we can be in a location which is close to that population growth and the demographic of those people with a lot of young kids, we think that there'll be a huge following.
In partnership with developer Hilton Grujon, the Pirates plan to build a huge 4,500-seat stadium to share with national netball team the Hunter Jaegers.
There's one championship court and 2 training courts, 4,500 seats, and very nice elevated corporate boxes and function rooms.
The development application will be submitted to Council within a fortnight. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Instead of operating from 2 sites at Islington and Waratah, by the end of this month, This Way Up Furniture will work out of the one location at Clyde Street in Hamilton North.
There's so much organising, it's a huge job to move 2 workshops, many hands-on.
The business, run by the Salvation Army, provides training for 50 people every year. Some are unemployed, others are work for the dole participants. In the case of Borrow, he's been volunteering for more than 12 months because the qualifications he gained in Bosnia aren't recognised in Australia. Meanwhile, the business has enabled 19-year-old Scott to gain an apprenticeship in cabinet making.
I didn't really like school, and I'm glad I've learned something and get a trade out of it. It's good.
The Salvos hope their bigger premises will enable them to train more people. They're also after more community support to employ the young people who they've helped turn their life around.
We get a lot of young people through here who haven't finished school, they've left very early on in the piece or have had no schooling whatsoever. At the end of the day, they can make any number of these furniture items in here.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. The cloudless skies brought the crowds in their droves. Organisers put this year's increased numbers down to a reduced admission fare.
In cutting our costs back, we were able to reduce our admission prices quite considerably, which I think is making it a lot more attractive for the people to come to the show. It's not as expensive as it used to be.
Inside, all the usual trimmings, plenty of prize-worthy produce, aisles of award-winning artworks, and dozens of delectable delights. In the animal nursery, all was as expected. The pigs were being pigs, and the kids, well, they were just acting like kids. Next door in the dog pavilion, it was down to business as pooches were primped and preened for parading. But for some, the fuss was all too much. All the action seemed to be on the opposite side of the showground, where there wasn't an empty seat on the chair ride, or the mini chair ride, or the carousel. Resourceful thrill seekers used the log ride to escape the searing heat. At this stage, all arrows point towards a profitable show.
We need to be every day to be a winner, and the first 2 days are winners, so hopefully we continue on that path.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
They had human intrusion into their fledgling vineyard covered, but lesson one for Broke Public School's wine foray has been that the early bird gets the grape, and in this case, the first vintage. On hearing of the school's plight, one of the local vineyards came to their aid and donated 2 tonnes of this season's crop. It today allowed 20 pupils from the year 3-4-5 class to get their first taste of harvest, and it was different to what they expected.
Picking grapes. They were nearly taller than me. And I got creased fingers from lifting the buckets up and putting them in the bins.
With the substitute crop for the first vintage now off, the Broke pupils will learn more about the wine industry in the classroom. It's believed to be one of the few primary schools in Australia with a vineyard, and while the wine sales will be used for fundraising, the initiative does have an educational purpose.
Incorporates every part of the curriculum, but you've got the hands-on part of it as well. So actually learning it from not only the hands-on side, but from the educational side and supporting all the key learning areas of our curriculum is fantastic.
And parents of some pupils will participate in teaching the class about various aspects of wine production.
And we're very fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful industries, parents and community members who are very willing to give back to our little school.
And scarecrows will be added to the program, with pupils now keen for a crop that's as good as their first harvest experience. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Rain may have forced the cancellation of the Memorial March, but it could not dampen the spirits of dozens of ex-soldiers who came from all over the country to remember the Stockton Bight disaster. On the 8th of March 1954, 9 amphibious vehicles, including 2 ducks like this one, set out on a military exercise from the former Camp Shortland at Horseshoe Beach. They were bound for Morna Point, but sudden big seas meant they didn't make it.
And we left early in the morning and it was flat. And we got out in the bight in the middle and up come a squall. Nobody could predict it. And they just went down.
Today, 50 years on, the diggers remembered 3 friends that drowned on that day. The memorial also gave the ex-servicemen a chance to catch up with old mates, some they hadn't seen in half a century.
All these guys that I remember as 18-year-old lads, they're old buggers like me now.
And when you look at them after a while, the face comes back.
Ex-members of Stockton Surf Life Saving Club received commendation certificates signed by Peter Cosgrove for their contribution to the rescue effort. Wreaths will be floated off Stockton on Monday.
After a 1,500 metre swim, the last thing you need is trouble in transition, especially if you're not a local. India's national squad among the overseas contingent, testing themselves over the Olympic distance with Athens in mind. Dodging traffic was of a more immediate concern for England's Andrea Whitcomb, after outstripping the women's field halfway into the bike leg. The men's event, though, was as tight as it comes, and when the leaders turned midway through the 40-kilometre cycle, it soon became more about surviving than winning. Heavy rain made for greasy conditions, and few were keen to make a break for it. With that said, Sydney's Matthew Clark, along with Tomaree Club teammates Joel Cook and Boyd Conrick, they maintained a slick pace in what seemed like a second swim leg on wheels. Heading out on the 10k run together, Clark was quickly dropped. It became a race between two, with Cook and Conrick on each other's heels. Whitcomb's lead, meanwhile, had ballooned. An Olympic middle distance runner in Sydney, she began her new sporting career in this event 3 years ago and showed why a second Games appearance is almost a certainty.
Well, we come to Australia every year for training. I just love it here. We come for like 5 months, get away from the English winter.
Conrick has a liking for this course too, defending his state title and continuing striking form.
I'm definitely probably the fittest aerobically I've ever been, and I felt really strong at the end. So, yeah, bring the Ironman on, I say.
Oh, it would be expensive. I got the boat maintenance, registration for the rubber ducky, registration for the hard dinghy. Just a bit too much to ask, I think.
For the attractions of Oakvale Farm and Fauna World at Port Stephens, they don't know what all the fuss is about. But for the park's owners, the cost to ensure the operation has become one mighty task.
There doesn't seem to be any justification for these increases. Claims Australia-wide have gone down and the premiums still seem to be going up.
And at a rapid rate, in what Kent Sampson believes to be a low-risk venture, there's never been a claim made against the family business, hoping for some sort of no-claim bonus to be introduced.
If you've had a good record, I think we've been unfairly penalised. We've been doing it for 25 years and our safety record is very good, so something needs to be done.
And it's a familiar story for many small businesses up and down the coast, with some even operating without full insurance, relying on people signing waivers to protect them.
I guess everything you do in your operation, you have to weigh up and see if it is viable, and can you justify keep doing it because of these costs? Yeah.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. No, it's not the Great Sahara, but you'd be excused for thinking it was. 500 urologists from across the globe will tonight wine and dine in this marquee with an Arabian theme, creating that desert feel, the brainchild of local tourist operator Tony Burrell.
The Stockton White Coastal Desert Wilderness is a very interesting place. The atmosphere that it exudes through the different moods of the day is electrifying.
Inside, the decorators have spared nothing, including $20,000 worth of rugs and cushions alone, creating a room fit for a sultan.
It's a full experience. They come in, they experience Arabia, then they leave and talk about it for years.
And for the organisers, it's probably felt like that long to truck in the 74 tonnes of equipment needed to hold a function such as this. Everything from toilets to power generators.
What we didn't realise is it would be so isolated, so far away from civilisation. Normally when we're working there's a McDonald's around the corner and there's running water and everything, and here it's provided quite a few challenges for us.
But the end result will no doubt be worth it, showcasing one of the region's greatest natural assets like never before.
People can make venues for corporate occasions and gala dinners, but they can't provide this natural ambience.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Laser surgery can be a noisy procedure because of the equipment needed to remove smoke. The unit is louder than your average vacuum cleaner and is so noisy it can interfere with vital communication between surgeons and support staff.
And we had one very near disaster where the surgeon couldn't be heard over the noise of the suction unit, which was the trigger really for the development of the new system.
This is the new and improved smoke evacuation unit developed in Newcastle by Steve Trelfo.
It's absolutely quiet. So we're generating our suction externally, all the noise is out in the plant room where it belongs, and we've had the added benefit of being able to completely remove all the filtered air to the outside.
The concept has also been applied to the most common type of surgery, electrosurgery. The new unit has been trialled at Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital for the last 12 months, and it's been welcomed by medical staff.
The new people take it for granted, but we know that it's made a huge difference.
Hunter Health is now in the process of finding a partner to manufacture and market the technology to the nation. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Aussteel's plan to develop the multi-billion-dollar steel mill was unveiled just 3 years ago. It was earmarked for Tomago and promised 2,500 full-time jobs. In the past 6 months, relations between the company and the state government soured. Aussteel recently launched court action alleging the government hadn't kept its side of the deal to allow the project to proceed, a claim Premier Bob Carr denies.
We said we'd do all that was reasonable, in line with the agreement, and we've done that.
This afternoon, Aussteel decided to quit Newcastle to investigate options in Southeast Asia, blaming the government for repeated failures to honour the Aussteel Development Agreement, a decision described as a blow for employment and manufacturing.
And this would have revitalised all that. Now, we've missed that opportunity, and I'm desperately sad that Aussteel are not going to establish here.
As for the remaining projects, the Protec Steel plant for Kooragang Island and the Hunter Specialty Steel's proposal for the Upper Hunter, both this afternoon told NBN News they continue to develop their plans and expect to make an announcement on their progress in the near future. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Like every other season launch before, those at Newcastle Rugby League headquarters were this afternoon looking forward to a better year. One without the pumpkin pickers, who local league boss Frank Barrett says getting back into the competition will be a top priority.
Yeah, it's disappointing, Maitland. It's one of those ones that we need to fix. We're looking at some business plans now to resurrect things in that area, and it'll be fixed though.
After falling short of making the playoffs by 2 points last year, the Wyong Roos are back and very much talking up their chances with some new personnel.
We've got Dane Cronin, who played for Country and New South Wales Residents last year. He's come down from Sawtell. And Willie Lockwood has come from Port Macquarie, where he's been the Player of the Year for the last 6 years.
And while the new stadium is being built at Cessnock, the Goannas will this year attempt to defend their title at Turner Park, starting this Saturday with the grand final replay against Raymond Terrace.
We're really looking forward to playing. You know, it's a long pre-season for players. You know, training before Christmas, and you go through the trials. All we want to do is get the first comp game out of the way.
In other matches, Kurri Kurri will host Lakes, while the Blues, Scorpions and Central enjoy the home ground advantage on Sunday. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
If you don't own a boat, then chances are you've never been to Pulba Island.
You can see it from a lot of the shoreline of the lake, and it's a really well-known landmark on Lake Macquarie, but not a lot of people have necessarily set foot here.
However, minimal human presence hasn't stopped the introduction of foreign species. Lantana and bitter bush have been choking the island's native flora for years.
They take over the landscape and suppress all of the native vegetation.
But a group of volunteers have given up their time to take part in a massive weed whacking effort. Twice a year for the past 4 years, people of all ages have made their way to Pulba in an effort to conserve its unique beauty.
Pulba Island's a focal point. I think it should be looked after.
And the fruits of their labour are paying off. This time last year, you couldn't even see through the bitter bush here. It was that thick. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Will encourage more and more businesses to come into the city itself and into the main street, and also it'll encourage more people to come into a more user-friendly main street.
It's finally here. Newcastle is putting together some last-minute preparations for one of the most topical tour events on the calendar for 2004. Surfest has been upgraded to a 4-star event, and despite today's bleak outlook at the official launch, there were still plenty of keen surfers in the water. All the talk started when 6-time world champion Layne Beachley agreed to compete against the men. She accepted a wildcard into the event, following in the footsteps of female golfers Laura Davies and Annika Sorenstam. There's even been speculation that Beachley will end up in the same heat as Kelly Slater in the first round of competition. And everyone's keen to see it happen, including 4-time world champ Mark Richards.
You know, the undisputed greatest woman surfer in history and the undisputed greatest male surfer in history, both paddling out together in a competitive situation at Newcastle Beach. Like, they'll be hanging from the rafters to see it.
But that's not all. Surfest is also expected to do great things for the local economy. And although the immediate effect of the competition will be felt economically, Newcastle Lord Mayor John Tate is confident the city will benefit in more ways than one.
As far as the promotion value of the city is concerned, it's very difficult to calculate, but we know that it is a huge plus.
Martin Cudahy, NBN News.
It was a heart-wrenching sight for any powerboat lover, let alone for the relatives and friends of the owner of the Avuka, which ran aground last night 8 kilometres north of Stockton, eerily close to the shipwrecked Cygna. The 7-year-old cruiser was the love of one man's life, 66-year-old Warren Amos, who was today recovering at home after a distressing night.
I can tell you how he's feeling, absolutely devastated, absolutely devastated. That's why he's not here now. It would have been shocking for him to see it in the daylight.
Friends say the Avuka was Warren's life. He spent several hours each day working on it at the Newcastle Marina.
I don't think anyone cares for their boat more than Warren does. He's down to see it every day, comes down, works on it, polishes it up.
Police say the owner and 3 others were fishing from the boat and were caught up in whitewater close to the shore. Waves then pushed the 10-metre-long boat onto the beach. The owner's son was today hoping to salvage the powerboat by towing it back out by the bow at high tide. But to make matters worse, tons of sand washed inside the boat's hull. It's not known if the Avuka was insured. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
In town for a charity function, Eddie Jones is always business when he talks rugby. He believes a national club competition is the smart play, but hopes boardroom politics at the top level doesn't get in the way.
We certainly do need to have a national club competition. You know, Newcastle's a great sporting city, they've got a great rugby league side and they need to have a great rugby union side.
Home to a Sydney grade club once before, Jones believes the Hunter region is crucial to any Australian club competition.
The Wildfires was a good thing for Newcastle rugby. Now that's gone, so we need to make sure there's opportunity for a number of the good young players around here.
Newcastle representative coach Paul Nixon hopes some of the ideas gleaned today from the national side's mentor will help them beat Central Coast on Saturday night. Both are undefeated and meet at Toronto for a chance to reach the semi-final of the country championship. The hosts have again been forced to make changes due to player unavailability, but believe they have the players to do the job.
It's testament to our depth from the bench that we can bring guys in and give some young guys an opportunity.
Deep, brown and overflowing, that was the Williams River at Dungog. 175 millimetres of rain since Sunday, swelling the waterway to a flood peak of 7.35 metres. It left a mark on the town, cutting one street and forcing the local bus company to make alternative parking arrangements. As the water headed downstream, it became increasingly difficult to see the natural course of the Williams, with numerous river flats flooded as the river spreads out. At Seaham, the fresh is already flowing over the local weir. The increased flow has lifted Hunter Water's total stocks by 3% since Sunday to 83%.
Chichester Dam is full and we're not pumping into Grahamstown at the moment from the Williams because the water quality is not good enough, but we should be able to by the end of the week or early next week. So that'll put our storages up a lot more.
The floodwaters created just one job for the Lower Hunter Division of the State Emergency Service in the past 24 hours. An elderly couple had to be evacuated from their Bulladila property to be with neighbours after concerns about a rising river near their home. Tonight, the SES continues to monitor the floodwater as it heads towards Raymond Terrace. Gary Blair, NBN News. When the Lower Hunter Transport Working Group delivered its most recent report, it recommended serious consideration be given to the future use of the Hamilton bus depot. It needs significant maintenance in the short term, prompting a suggestion the site be sold with proceeds spent on new buses and transport infrastructure. While the decision is yet to be made, Transport Minister Michael Costa says it is an option.
That was raised, in fact, by some of the union people, whether with changes to bus services we ought to look at a new depot. I'm happy to be open-minded about that.
And while the Minister today met with Newcastle Buses employees to discuss the condition of the fleet after an $11 million upgrade, he also used the opportunity to encourage people in the Hunter to take a free train ride tomorrow. City Rail has a fare free Thursday to compensate commuters inconvenienced by recent problems on the network.
If you haven't used the public transport system, have a go. I mean, it's not going to cost you anything. Have a go and maybe it'll change the way you travel.
Gary Blair, NBN News. This police holding yard continues to be testament that some motorists want to learn the road rules the hard way. These 5 vehicles are the latest to be confiscated by Waratah Highway Patrol during an enforcement on Kooragang Island.
And anyone that was obviously blatantly endangering everyone else's safety by doing the burnouts and the racing were reported. And as a result of that, over 20 cars so far, simply from that weekend operation, have been confiscated.
Most of the vehicles are grounded for 3 months. The owners, including some on P-plates, now have fines totalling $2,000. Second-time offenders are even worse off.
Out of those 20 odd that have been confiscated so far, 3 of them are the second time, which means that those people now forfeit their vehicles to the Crown. The Crown now has the right to sell them, so they won't get them back at all.
And bike riders are coming in for police attention. And enforcement by Lake Macquarie officers is focusing on helmet wearing and roadworthiness because of community concern, especially about the safety of children.
We're asking the parents to take ownership of this problem and to make sure that their children's bike is safe and that they have a helmet that is able to be worn by each child that rides a push bike.
The fine for not wearing a helmet is $49. Gary Blair, NBN News.
He had dinner with the former world champion Mark Richards last night, and today Andy Irons was surfing the 4-time Kings home break of Merewether. But while Irons doesn't care who he free surfs with, he's adamant when it comes to competition, Lane Beachley's invite should be a one only.
Of course, I mean, she's in it, and if I lose, I'm never going to hear the end of it, so it's always going to be in the back of my head. But
Beachley isn't expecting an armchair ride from any of the men.
I have a feeling they're just going to try and paddle all over me and stop me from catching waves.
Normally, she would have hit the water today with her fellow female surfers in the opening heats of the Women's Pro event. Defending champion Rebecca Woods hopes to follow in Beachley's footsteps on the Women's Tour, but the teenager would be happy to retrace a few of her own in defending this event. She began well, winning today. In the open men's draw, 17-year-old Swansea surfer Michael Spencer again upstaged some big names, moving through on his last ride. The high school student needs another day off the books tomorrow, as he'll be in class with childhood hero Luke Egan, who's around twice his age. Winner here in 1997, another veteran, Shane Bevan, ripped his afternoon heat apart with a range of strong manoeuvres that saw him survive for another day. The seeds hit the water tomorrow, but it's the big contest between Irons and Beachley that'll hold most interest. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Instead of sizing up the Parramatta Pack tomorrow night, Steve Simpson was today shaping up to a pair of crutches. A stress fracture in his right foot will sideline him for between 6 to 8 weeks.
I'm very disappointed. I really was looking forward to playing the whole year because I had a disrupted year last year and was really looking forward to playing well, but I suppose that's not to be this year, and hopefully we're back before you know it anyway.
He won't just miss football for the Knights, however, with next month's Anzac Test against New Zealand in Newcastle now out of the question, along with at least the start of State of Origin.
A similar thing happened last year, only with McGroin, and yeah, it's disappointing to miss that, but I suppose the main thing is to be back on deck for the business end of the season.
In his absence, interchange forward Todd Lowry will now start for the first time against a much talked about Parramatta Pack.
Yeah, they're big boys, but I mean, we've got a fair forward pack ourselves, so I'm sure we'll have no troubles handling them.
We're well aware of that, but he's handled it really well against the Cowboys pack, Melbourne and Penrith, so and physically he's going pretty well, so I think he'll handle it fine.
And there are a few other issues to deal with as well.
Our discipline will be one. For starters, that's an area we need to sort out.
At this stage, it is quite clear that Greg Piper will become Mayor of Lake Macquarie, taking over from the revered and now retired John Kilpatrick. Around 113,000 people took to the polls across Lake Macquarie yesterday, and first counts show Councillor Piper well and truly leading with almost 44% of the vote.
I was confident that we would do well. We have greatly exceeded my expectations.
More than 40,000 people have voted for John Tate to continue in the top job in Newcastle. The council veteran has received more than 53% of formal votes.
What we've had is an endorsement of our policies and initiatives. It's been a 4-year term that's been full of a lot of achievement, and I want to keep those programs going for the next 4 years.
In Maitland, it looks like a resounding victory for current Mayor Peter Blackmore. He's easily accounted for the other candidates, Henry Muskauskas and Jan Davis, with around 54% of the vote. Preference should be counted within a week, and the complete councils will be revealed within the next fortnight. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
For Kurt Gidley, making the switch from 5'8" to halfback is a natural progression of sorts, given plenty of time to ease into the role after Andrew Johns' early exit last season. Now, big brother Matt will play alongside in the number 6 jumper in what will be yet another family connection in the Newcastle halves.
Played plenty of times with him on the right-hand side, with him being centre and me 5'8", so not too much is going to change. Probably, he's going to have to adapt to a 5'8" because he hasn't played there for a while, but I'm sure he'll be all right.
But Matt's not so sure, under no preconception of what life in the halves will be like.
Maybe a bit extra work, so I could be a bit extra tired out there, but that'd be the first thing I noticed, I'd say.
As far as knowing each other's games, they've had plenty of time to work it out, but it remains to be seen if they're a successful 6 and 7 combination.
We've definitely got some work to do. They're pretty important positions in the team, but we spend most of our time playing on the same side of the field anyway. We both normally play on the right-hand side.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
If anyone believes private sector involvement in the Marta redevelopment is a dead issue, these 500 people think otherwise. The rally at Newcastle Panthers dissected the state government's arguments about the need for a so-called public-private partnership to fund the $132 million overhaul. Marta physician Dr David Henry says there's agreement that the private sector has only one role to play at the hospital.
We don't want them running and owning our hospitals. They can build them, but they shouldn't own and run them.
Despite a recent government claim that it has the Health Services Union on side over the partnership, HSU members attended last night in numbers. Newcastle Trades Hall Council is now ready for union action if there's any start to work at the Marta.
The government or the Marta board or Hunter Health will try to commence demolition of buildings at Platt Street, and we will oppose that. So it will be brought to head very, very quickly.
Bob Carr has been warned only he has the power to break the impasse. Dr Henry says Marta employees want an opportunity to speak with the Premier
about the fallacy of this PPP and the feeling that they are second best yet again.
The final call comes down to the Premier, and it is about time that the Premier got involved personally with this.
Gary Blair, NBN News. Newcastle may have a namesake warship, but there's also a sense of pride about the Manoora. The former US vessel, refurbished at Forjac's Carrington dockyard, now plays a pivotal support role for the Royal Australian Navy. In coming weeks, tradesmen from Cardiff firm Automated Control Engineering will be among the latest to work on it to install locally designed and built electrical systems for the warship.
We were actually commissioned by one of the organisations in Sydney in conjunction with the Australian Defence Industries to actually design the requirements for this switchboard. And so from that we did the full in-house design and engineering, and from that we then carried on to actually do the manufacture, which we're now in the process of completing now.
Installation of the 21 switchboards and distribution boards will be a big job requiring part of the ship to be opened up.
They do actually have to cut sections out of the ship to actually fit the switchboard back into it, so it certainly is a very large project for us.
The contract has seen the ACE workforce of 28 increase by 10 for the project. Traditionally a contractor for the mining and heavy engineering sector, the Manoora project will become the company's springboard for more defence work.
And we've been able to use it as a lever to get interests of expression in further defence contracts, one with the Australian Army and also one with the New Zealand Navy as well.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Scoring 2 from 2 at this meet already, you'd think Justin Norris could afford to be a little more relaxed in his third finals appearance of the week. But beaten by Ian Thorpe in this race last year, he was keen to stamp his name back on the event. A typically strong start on his favoured butterfly stroke was tempered with a slower backstroke time, slipping to fourth. But in what's become a trademark finish, he powered home to win. And take it he did, slashing half a second off his personal best time to qualify for his third event for Athens, where he'll have additional goals for this race.
I would have loved to have raced Ian tonight, and I'm sure if he was in there, maybe we could have pushed each other, but his Commonwealth record's still, Australian record's still there, so it's something for me to chase.
He swims in the 100-metre butterfly final tonight. The great week for Hunter Pirates' Geordie Cullen also continues, with the forward today named the NBL's most improved player. The 25-year-old enjoyed an incredible back half to the season, where he pushed his scoring average to almost 18 points per game. Polling 53 votes, he won by 2 in beating Brisbane's Ben Castle for the honour, and will suit up in the All-Star game in Melbourne next week. The news comes just days after agreeing to remain a Pirate for the next 2 years.